Good evening and welcome to the Barbados Entrepreneurship Foundation's webinar series From Idea to Success. I am David Simpson and a director of the BEF and your moderator for this evening. The objective of this webinar series is to provide an online forum for practical and hands-on discussion about the journey of entrepreneurship from the idea to its success. The BEF has been in existence for the past 10 years and many of you would be familiar with us from our $20 challenge program. This series is closely aligned with the BEF's mandate to help support and create an entrepreneurship culture in Barbados. And this evening's webinar is entitled Financing Your Idea. Joining me for this webinar this evening are two panelists, both entrepreneurs in their own right, and one of them with a background in banking. So please help me welcome Omar Watson and Dario Greenidge. Welcome and good evening, guys.
Good evening, David. Good evening, viewers.
Let me share a bit about our panelists. Omar has 12 years in banking experience, culminating in a role as the regional lead for electronic payment sales for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean. He's a familiar face in the finance and payments industry, and most recently joined the BIT team in 2017 in the role of Merchant Business Development Lead. He has been directly responsible for onboarding over more than 1,000 merchants to that company's M-Money platform locally and has been key in the business development process that governs feature releases and strategic alignments in the market. He is a firm believer in the potential positive effect of digitization of commercial activity on the local economy and regional trade. Omar is committed to lending his expertise to the digital transformation of Barbados and the wider Caribbean. Dario is the owner and managing director of Shine Automotive, located in Black Rock. And most recently, in carrying out his business, Mario has launched his own line of products which are used within his business as he provides valet services, and he has also started to retail those products to the general public. So welcome, Dario. Welcome, Omar. And let us get started with our webinar this evening, Financing Your Idea. I would like to start our discussion this evening by considering some of the financing options that are available. And I know that finance has always been a significant challenge to micro, small, and medium-sized entities and many others as well. So I would want to start our discussion by asking Omar if you could identify some of the financing options that you are aware of currently in Barbados, and how do you see them as being viable to businesses?
Well, for one, I think this has been the most competitive lending landscape we've ever seen in Barbados. Previously, it would have been dominated by just the commercial banks, and then we would have had the introduction of credit unions. But then more recently, we would have seen the introduction of small, micro lending organizations like Fund Access, Fast Cash, even BYBT, Youth Entrepreneurship Scheme. So I think for the first time ever in the country's history, it's actually the most competitive lending landscape that you can see. And I think it's been a good thing for small businesses. It's been a good thing for large businesses as well, but it started to give the micro and small enterprises the voice, or at least the chance to do some big things here in Barbados. So I think that's been good. What you choose, which ones you choose to go with, I think is almost indicative of, what experience you're looking to get. And the commercial banks will give you, you get the money, but you also get access to a whole bunch of other products that can be helpful to you, whether it's payment options, whether it's, additional credit card, stuff you can use to manage your expenses with. Credit unions give you a more flexible application process. And then with the micro and small agencies, you often find a lot of the approved loans also come with mentorship and a lot of advice and a lot of what I call group therapy, and gives some of these small enterprises a real chance to leverage on a lot of expertise in the market. So I think, it's a good landscape. It's a good time to be alive. It's a good time to have an idea. It's a good time to find yourself some financing, better than it's ever been before, at least since I've been, active in this market. So, yeah.
Thanks, Omar. Any thoughts, Dario?
I share the same thoughts as Omar on this one. In addition, I would add the recent Carrie Lane. They would have joined the market as well, and they're doing some small business financing as well. I know the Ministry of Small Business. They would have also launched their loan program, their seed launching program, their seed funding program, which is for very small and micro businesses as well. So those are two good opportunities that are out there as well for financing for very small and micro enterprise, and they're relatively easy to attain from what I gather. And again, as Omar said, this is the time that if you want financing, this is the time that you could really go out there and get it. You just got to make sure that you're able to meet the standards that are outlined by the various institutions, and it should be relatively straightforward in most cases.
Okay, thank you guys. So banking versus micro-lending agencies, alternative approaches to financing our business ideas. I want to start with you again, Omar. What would you suggest is the correct starting point for seeking for any business or startup seeking to finance their idea or their new business?
I think it's very important to have a good understanding of what exactly you need from your lending institution. I mean, all in all, you'll get funding from each of them, but depending on which direction you go in, there's a lot to be had. And depending on what stage you are at in terms of idea development or conceptualization, it's important to know what you're going to get from each institution, which is what I was referring to earlier. When you go to a commercial bank, yes, you get the financing, but then you also get access to a wide array of business products that can support you in doing what you need to do. Whether that's over the counter payment options, e-commerce, credit cards, and just the products that you need to grow business from small to medium and medium to large. But if you need a little bit more than that, as I was referring to earlier, what you get when you access some of these smaller micro lending options is you get a lot of mentorship. I call it group therapy. I myself, a long time ago, actually, when I was first starting in banking, I also had sought some financing on my own to start, not on my own, to start a small business as well. And back in those days, we had gotten the financing from BYBT, I remember quite vividly. And what came with the money was the mentorship that we needed to then grow our business from a very, very good idea to something that was profitable. Unfortunately, I had to let it all go when my banking career got serious, but it all depends on what you're going after. It depends on what you're looking for in addition to just the funding, So I think that's all you can do about choosing which direction you go in. And then obviously there's the credit unions smashed right in the middle of the commercial banks and the micro lending agencies. And the credit unions apparently offer more relaxed application process. We all know the difficulties that you go through sometimes dealing with the commercial banks, and the credit unions are sometimes willing to invest in an idea, where commercial banks tend to invest in numbers. The credit union sometimes gives you a chance, and if you show the right passion and the right direction, sometimes they're willing to throw you the funds that you need and invest in an idea. And I think it really depends on what exactly you're looking to get from your financier. And once you know that, once you know how far you're willing to go or how far you've come, I think it's easy to make a decision then based on that.
So Dario, I know before this program and for a few months, we've been having this conversation about access to finance and so on. And I know you've had some thoughts on this. So I want to invite you to share some of your thoughts in terms of the alternative sources now, because I think Omar did a pretty good job of highlighting from the commercial bank to the credit unions, agencies like Fund Access, ES, BYBT, and so on. But as a entrepreneur who had to launch his own retail business and product line and so on, your experience with financing, what would you suggest in terms of some viable alternative sources to financing the idea?
David, recently we've been talking a lot about the crowdfunding opportunities. And I always say that depending on the site, depending on where you're at in business, as Omar said, you could make a decision as to who you go to, who you approach for financing. But I love the crowdfunding model. I mean, it gives you the breathing room that most small and micro enterprise need in the beginning stages to be able to develop the idea and develop the product without having the monthly outlay to the banks and that kind of thing. So I do believe that the crowdfunding option is a very good one. And I don't even mean at a large scale. I mean, if you could compel maybe 10 friends and family, if you could compel a couple of friends and family that are willing to back your idea and give you what you need to do it, and you make the arrangements to give them a share certificate, not necessarily to give them a stake or where they have a real monopolized say in the business, but where at the end of a period they get a return. And it gives you as the entrepreneur the flexibility to be able to manage your cash flows, to be able to control your revenue and that kind of thing a lot better. And then you're able to grow a lot faster. So I do believe that the crowdfunding option is something that that is getting interesting in our market. I mean, that is only one of them. There are a few other things that I've started to see as well in Barbados. Carrie Land is doing something very similar. But I do believe that each business has to decide what they want based on where they're at. Ultimately, I believe that the commercial banks are more so suited for businesses who are already established, who already have some level of collateral to offer for the funds needed. And because as Omar said, commercial banks would offer you a peripheral of external and other options that you need to be able to grow. Whereas if you're in the startup stage, you might not need those things at that stage. You might just need the capital to get the stock or the idea off the ground, and you should be able to manage and take it to the next level until you need further finance. So definitely crowdfunding option, that is something that I am definitely an advocate for, whether it is at a formal level or a friends and family level. I think that is something that a lot of entrepreneurs need to start considering and be willing to use that model to get the business off the ground.
I know a few years back, the BEF, in going through the formation of our angel network at the time, in some consultations with external advisors, we went through this whole thing about funding ideas and businesses, and we started with savings and the resources of friends and family, more or less like the love money, so to speak. And then we moved to more viable sources, whether it be crowdfunding, angel investing, commercial banks, and of course the ultimate aim was something like a junior stock exchange and being able to list your company to raise equity financing and so on. I'm going to come back to the equity and the debt, but we're in the midst of a pandemic right now. Both Omar and Dario, have you seen or heard any discussions, any emerging sources of finances due to the pandemic and the effects of the pandemic on various businesses?
Well,
well, you go ahead,
Omar.
Oh, okay. So you have, I mean, this pandemic is something that we've never seen the likes of before. And it's hard, it's still relatively early to pinpoint trends or how everything is going to be affected once we do settle back into some level of normalcy. But what I can tell you is what I expect to see, and this is obviously just experience talking, and don't hold me to it. What we expect to see is a bit of a retraction on the commercial banks, increasing exposure. So they'll be very careful on what they put out into the market. They're going to be very cautious. They have their own risk systems to mitigate. So I feel like we'll see a retraction in the risk appetite for commercial banks. But what we'll also see on the other end, though, is persons who are particularly liquid and have access to funds. Their investor appetite always goes up, after situations like this. So, options like crowdfunding and peer-to-peer lending, those kind of things might go up because, persons with money to spend, liquidity, are going to be looking to make some quick moves as soon as we get out of this. So, on my end, I'm hearing a lot of that. A lot of persons, especially persons overseas, are asking, what's happening in Barbados? What are the investment opportunities? And we felt, some of the circle I'm in, we felt it was rather premature to already be getting these questions. But the truth is, coming out of something like this, liquidity shouts loudest. So you would find, persons with that liquidity looking to throw it around a bit. So if you have a business idea at this point and, it's COVID proof, and you're still looking to do something with it, coming out to this, your options might be a little slimmer on the commercial banking side. But if you keep your ear close to the ground, I advise to be networking, to be talking to the people around you. You'd be surprised at what you might run into in terms of funding options. That's the truth. And like I said, it's just opinion. and based on the rumblings that we're hearing at this stage of the pandemic. But I think that's definitely where we sit coming out of this in terms of financing.
Dario.
Interesting. I could agree to some degree, but for me, I am hearing a bit of that, but I'm also hearing a bit of the bank saying that, you know, they actually want to step up and play a big role in the stimulus package. I mean, the government just released their stimulus package as well, which is predominantly geared towards the tourism sector. But for the other small businesses, you know, we got a fairly small portion of the stimulus, but it is a good effort. And I think that starts to set the tone for what is needed in the country. I do think that the banks may not have, as Omar said, they may not have the same risk appetite as before. They may not want to take those chances before, but I do believe that they will use this opportunity to be able to step up and grab market share based on the fact that well, an individual bank or banks decide that they step into the market and kind of save the day. And now is the time for the banks to really step in and make things happen and show that they really not necessarily care about Barbados as a whole, but show that they really want to play a part in the development of business. Because at the end of the day, the more small businesses or entrepreneurs we get out there happening with ideas, we reduce the possibility of a high unemployment rate, reduce the possibility of poverty and that kind of thing, because everybody will be ultimately creating various streams of revenue and opportunities for others. So I do believe that it is a time for the banks to step up and play a big role. I agree 100% that liquidity is king. So a lot of people that have the liquidity will be playing a major role in market, and they will probably be getting involved in a lot of equity buys and that kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to that as well. That's going to be a very interesting playground to be in. But I certainly hope, and this is just from my preliminary discussions and what I'm hearing on the ground, I certainly hope that I will be able to see the banks really step up and take advantage of what could be a very opportunistic time in our life as entrepreneurs and as business people. Because from here, once, as Omar said, you know, if you have an idea that's COVID proof or seeks to there's no reason why the bank shouldn't take it on and support it.
What I expect to see from the banks initially, rather than outlay of equity, because risk mitigation.
Right. Let me just take a moment to remind our viewers, both on the Zoom platform, and we are also, I believe, sharing it live on Facebook via the BEF's page. All of you listening and watching the webinar, you're free to send us your questions via the Zoom platform, either using the chat room or feature or the question and answer feature. And we have someone who will monitor that, and I'll be using some of those questions for the discussion. And we have a dedicated question and answer period towards the end of this evening's webinar. And also on Facebook, please feel free to share your questions there, as those will also be monitored. Guys, as we continue our discussion about financing, financing in itself is kind of an elephant in the room for most SMEs. But I think there's another one in relation to financing, and I think it came up in one of our earlier sessions in the series, and that is the whole issue of equity versus debt. And I know there is a fear among many small business owners and entrepreneurs that they need to protect their ideas so that somebody doesn't steal it or control it. And, you know, to be able to pursue equity financing, you need to be willing to give up some measure of control in your business and ownership. On the other side, pursuing pure debt finance carries a significant cost burden to the operation. So I want to start with you, Dario. Can you share some of your thoughts on equity versus debt? And you can even personalize it if you wish. Would you take the step towards equity financing in your current operation as a means to access further finance and be able to expand and grow?
For me personally, in my endeavor as Shine Automotive, I would definitely be willing to look into the equity financing. It's a model that I'm certainly taking some interest in at the moment, trying to identify exactly what portion I would like to allocate towards that. But you know, I believe that you have to decide based on the state or where your business is at when you make that move. Because if you do it too early, then you might cripple your business. So I do believe in making sure that you have all the information together and make sure that you make a decision, make an informed decision based on the stage that your business is at in terms of development. But for me at Shine Automotive, I'm definitely entertaining the idea, especially for the plans that I have in the future. I want to be able to expand, and I want to be able to grow. And there's room in there for someone else to come in and take a stake. So in terms of a ratio, in terms of equity versus debt, the bank metric usually doesn't allow you or doesn't want you to have anything more than 30% in most cases as your debt service ratio. But I don't usually subscribe to that, simply because as an entrepreneur, I kind of think that the business could perform based on how you actually push it and make certain small adjustments and changes within it. So I don't believe that for me, I don't stick to a model or a metric that is designed by the financial institutions, but I still try to practice proper financial management to make sure that I don't overburden the business or any business that I'm in, for that matter, with too much debt, because that, as you said before, that could be heavy on the business and that could cause business to crash as well. So on the equity part, I would definitely give it a thumbs up. I'm definitely interested in doing it in the future. But so yeah, that's my 2 cents.
I'm happy you raised financial management later on in the session. Omar, what are your thoughts on equity versus debt? Personal, also leveraging your experience as a former banker.
Yeah, I think just like Bill says, it comes down to the stage your business is at. When you're starting at zero, and then you also add finances to zero, it almost feels sometimes like you're starting in negative. And instead of being positive and optimistic about the future, you often are caught up worrying about paying your bills. And sometimes that comes with its own issues in terms of putting your all into this. For some people, it could be a motivator. But for some people, it definitely does distract and detract from the things that you should be focusing on. And I've seen that a lot. People with great ideas, and they use that financing as a way to go, and then because they feel like they're digging themselves out of a hole, and they get demotivated. They stop putting the effort that they need to put in, because it just isn't there. And businesses fall with good ideas. So it depends on the stage of the business, and it depends on the person as well. Some people perform better when there's somebody chasing them. Some people don't. And it's just a fact of life. So it depends on the person going into it and the stage of the business you're at. Now, in terms of equity is good. Obviously, somebody putting money in as part of ownership, but it also depends on what concept you're really pushing. Because sometimes people putting equity in can get messy once things start to perform in a particular way. So it's definitely not something that should be taken lightly. Equity. In Dario's case, yes, it would be a good idea for him, because at the stage he's at and doing very well. Obviously, he has big expansion plans. He's not looking to take up capital and push into that and then put what he's already achieved at risk. So in his position, it might be a good idea equity over incurring additional debt, but it really depends on where you're at. It depends on the product that you push, and it depends on what your mindset is of going into the business at that particular point. So they both have their pros and they both have their cons, and it's definitely something to think about. It's not necessarily that somebody wants to buy into the business and you say yes, because it's easier than that. There's a lot to consider. The structure of that equity agreement also comes into play. I advise people going into equity relationships to absolutely make sure that you do seek some legal advice. Do leverage on persons who've done it before, because sometimes these things can get really messy if they're not handled early on. Similar to debt financing, make sure that you need what you're borrowing. A lot of people will go into an institution and need 10 but borrow 20. what ends up happening is borrowing 20 or borrowing 10 ends up putting them for a goal. They don't get the idea that they go. So, it's a matter of, knowing where you stand, having all the facts at hand and just making a real strategic decision, based on where you're at. So if you of one versus the other, but it really depends on what we're talking about, what stage you're at.
Just to add something, David, to what Omar was saying, because he was making a very valid point there as well, because the partnership is also very important in terms of who you partner up with on the equity side, because you want a partner, especially depending on the stage of business that you're at, you want a partner that is not just there for the money, that will be able to add some value. So you want a partnership that is strategic as well as for the financial side. So you want to get the money, yes, but I think most businesses should always find an equity partner that, that has has some value to add to the business, whatever the business may be, and is interested in making sure that the business, really develops and goes to the next level, as opposed to just getting a return on your dollar, because that really makes a difference as well in terms of how the partnership is made up, and ultimately the fruits that bear from the partnership.
Okay, great. I have one question that I think I will put out there now because it leads on from our discussion. The viewer is asking to our point on having the idea out there to get financing. They're asking if they should use a non-disclosure agreement to protect the idea, and they're querying if lenders will honor that non-disclosure agreement. What are your thoughts?
That's a very interesting question. And my advice. My advice would be the non-disclosure is mandatory regardless.
Go ahead. You already started.
Right. So the non-disclosure is mandatory in my mind, but I also believe that in your business plan or your business proposal, there is some level of proprietary information that you should maintain and keep for yourself until you get at least through the first phase of the approval process or whatever the case may be. Because for me personally, I don't believe in putting your full idea out there to be explored and to be examined. Because the non-disclosure, as much as that is a legally bonded arrangement, at the end of the day, we're all human beings, So I do believe in, you make your business plan or business proposal as solid as possible, but there's certain, whatever is the proprietary information, if you can withhold at least those names, contacts, that kind of thing, then you just remove those things from the proposal and make sure that the proposal is sound without actually revealing too much information.
Omar.
Yeah, and I definitely agree in terms of protecting your idea. The most powerful thing in your business is the idea that got it all started. Everything that comes thereafter is building on that very idea. So it's very important to protect your idea. To be direct to the question, asking if financial institutions will honor the NDA, they have to. NDA is usually built with certain penalties built in if a party signing on does not honor the NDA. So definitely they would honor it, and I would ask him what was a fantastic idea to make sure that you do the persons you're involved in, whether it be financing, whether it be partners, whether it be other agencies that you're planning to leverage off of, just make sure that your idea is protected first and foremost, and then go from there.
Okay. Now, I want to move on to some of the requirements, because some of our listeners may not have gone through the process yet and may be querying what are some of the criteria and requirements when seeking finance from these agencies. Dario, can you start by sharing with us, when you were seeking finance, what was your experience in terms of the requirements and the criteria that had to be met?
But the business plan was one of the first things that are on the top of the list, the business proposal, business plan. Depending on the amount that you're asking for, then, definitely the financials, income and expenditure, your balance sheet, some projections as well. And then as you depending on your stage of where your business is at, or where you're asking, where you're requiring from the institution, then they would want to evaluate your collateral, and you as an individual. So you're definitely going to probably have to do a personal declaration in most cases, just to show exactly what you as the owner or whoever, or if it's a group of people, everybody will have to disclose their personal information in terms of what they actually not only bring to the business, but what their financial ingredients look like. And those are the pretty standard stuff across most institutions. I mean, some entities like the trust loan and stuff like that, from my understanding, those guys would not necessarily want such in-depth information. But for sure, commercial banks, fund access to some degree, credit unions, those kind of institutions would want to at least be able to evaluate and examine you as a customer or a potential borrower, to see exactly where you stand and if you are a worthy client. And I think those are things that any entrepreneur, any person looking to get into business should be able to obtain. I always say that having your accounts together, having your financials, or at least a good accountant in your corner to be able to help support you, that's a critical part of business and entrepreneurship. And I learned it the hard way to some degree, because those aren't resources that I had in the beginning. But certainly, I'm thankful that I have those resources now at my fingertips.
Did you, Dario, seek your financing at the start of your business, or were you operating when you went forward seeking finance?
Right. So I didn't pursue financing when I started. I actually just started out of pocket with a couple of dollars, and I allowed my revenue to basically roll over and build it to the point where I could have done it, and then I sought financing after that. But that it was a struggle, and when I look back at it, as much as it was a good experience, it was a very, very hard time when you look around, and especially building a business in a recession. There are going to be hurdles. I mean, when I look back on those hurdles now, you say, "Ooh, that was just a small little road bump," but there were hurdles then, and you really have to be a very resilient entrepreneur to be able to overcome, or to be able to build a business from just the revenues or the intakes of the business. So I do encourage people as much as possible, even if it's just a peer-to-peer lending. And the reason why I always link back to the peer-to-peer lending is because everybody in the peer-to-peer system becomes an advertising billboard for your business. So if you can do it out of pocket, then go ahead. But if you can source funding, then that is always a good option.
And finally, on that point, before we move back to Omar, having gone through the process, seeing the requirements, whether with the commercial bank or one of the alternative entities, would you say the process and the requirements are too onerous for micro and small businesses?
I do believe that there needs to be some consultation, especially with the commercial banks, with actual small businesses, before they actually tailor the products. And let me tell you why. Most of the time, commercial banks develop their products based on their data, and they have a lot of data, and they design their products, which are very well designed. And I'm sure there are entrepreneurs that fit right into these slots. But then there are a lot of other entrepreneurs that may be good customers for the bank, but they may not be fitting right into the slot because they may just need some tweaking here and some tweaking there. So I do believe that there is some consultation that should happen between, maybe even if it's between the BEF and the banks, or the Small Business Association, or one of these other entities with the commercial banks. And I say commercial banks in particular because those are the entities that would have they would have a more structured financial profile in terms of what is required to get the financing, and that in itself upgrades you as an entrepreneur. So I do believe that those are requirements that need to be met as an entrepreneur. But most entrepreneurs need a bit of tweaking, need a bit of help to be able to get to the stage where the bank would say, all right, yeah, you're a good customer, and we want to take you on. So I do believe some consultation needs to happen or some more consultation needs to happen, really and truly. And that will provide a more enabling environment as well for entrepreneurs and for micro and small business individuals.
Yeah, I feel just to that point, Dario, I feel that the commercial banks' way of assessing clients is a bit antiquated. I think as business has progressed and grown, I think a good idea would be to start more of a tiered system with access to products. You can't possibly paint, a business like Shine, like when you first started, alongside a business that's been in production for a very long time, and expect these two businesses to have the same track record or the same, the same run rate to be able to come in and seek financing. And it's actually, since I've been working with BIT, it's actually one of the biggest frictions that we have sought to solve, where we tailor make a system to suit the customer that we're dealing with. Because what we're dealing is essentially reducing frictions, and the frictions that the bank, more so than anybody else, imposes on small businesses. We're not in the business of giving credit, but in terms of access to the technology and the products that you need to grow your business, we exercise a tiered system. So once you come in, obviously we have a frictionless application system, but once you get into actually accessing the products, we make sure that there's a tiered system. Everybody can't be expected to produce the same data or produce the same background information to move forward. So, a tiered system is something that I think the financial industry down here needs to really look at and stop, painting everybody with the same brush, because essentially that's how you stall commercial growth. You'll keep pushing good ideas down just because somebody doesn't have, the money or the information that you deem necessary to lend to. So I very much agree with you there at that point, and ask that there be some kind of change, some kind of reform in the application system, especially for lending and access to products. So I'm definitely with you there on that one.
I want to remind all of our viewers that they are free to submit their questions on the Zoom platform using the chat feature or the question and answer feature. And also, please feel free to share your questions if you are watching us on the Facebook feed. Omar, I want to come back to you and move more to your current responsibility at BIT. I think one of the things that has never been a big focus for finance houses has been the distribution of loans and so on, and traditional methods have been used. With the advent of things like M-Money, and I know you've done a lot of research and probably had a lot more experience in recent years, how would you suggest, or what are some of the options that you think could enhance how finance houses distribute or disburse the loan funds using technology? And with the current restrictions and disadvantages of using checks and bank accounts, many businesses don't have bank accounts. Take the current situation in a pandemic. If you had a loan approved the day before the shutdown, you have to wait until the banks open back up to get a check. So share with me some of your thoughts in terms of distribution channels for finance houses.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a conversation that we've had, that, myself and my team at BIT, we've had probably every day since the pandemic and the subsequent shutdown has started. Like, we sincerely feel, let's say we've done pretty well over the last couple of years with M-Money, 1,000+ merchants, over 10,000 consumers, and continuing to grow, building good partnerships as well. But we very much feel if we'd gotten the penetration that we would ideally have liked to have as a growing business, let's say 6 months ago, let's say 2 months before the pandemic started, if we had the kind of penetration that we would have liked, then this pandemic would have glazed over Barbados commercially. And I know that's a big statement to make, but the truth of the matter is it's fact. If the banks and other financial institutions, merchants and consumers were more accustomed to the idea of transmitting and remitting funds digitally, we would be in a much better position than we are right now. For example, and I'll take it all the way to the top from the government perspective, and then come down to the commercial banks. If, let's say, the government were able to distribute, so we have this huge pull now on our NIS reserves with the unemployment and whatnot that's being used up because of the current situation. What if there wasn't a need to print those checks? What if the government could distribute those funds, digitally to consumer wallets, for example, a cell phone? then we'd be in a much better position in terms of servicing the persons who are out of work and potentially depending on the NIS to give them, you know, the power that they need to keep going forward. If we come down now to the banking level, just like you said, there were a lot of people, myself included on a personal note, who were engaged in certain conversations with commercial banks. And because the banks weren't in a position, well, they have grown in the digital front a long way over the last 2-3 years or so, but they're still not at the point where banking could continue seamlessly using digital platforms only. The online banking still never got the reach that they needed it to, and even within online banking, there's still restrictions as it relates to instantaneous transmission of funds bank to bank. You know, persons getting their money once they're paid. If they're using credit, if the consumer is using a credit card, you still got to wait to the next day to receive your money, that kind of thing. So all in all, you know, we feel as if, you know, and money was primarily placed to, I mean, Barbados would be a perfect use case if we got in the penetration that we would have ideally liked to have, because business, for lack of better words, would have continued as usual if we were able to move around and transmit funds digitally as we would like it to be. So, I mean, this pandemic has been, I mean, destructive for everybody, but for us, it's given us the opportunity, or at least the platform now, to show people, to show Barbados and the wider region, based on the work that we're doing, that it needs to move to digital. Digital payments, digital remittances, digital transfers, payroll. I mean, checks. What if the banks, what if, you know, we've been affected in a greater way and banks weren't able to service ATMs anymore? You know, what would happen then? People wouldn't be able to deposit checks. You'd have thousands and thousands of NIS holders holding a pink check, and that's really no good to them because they can't get into a financial institution to cash it and then go into the market and spend. Imagine if those funds were transmitted digitally and they had access to them on their phone and could go to merchants and be able to use the money. So it goes to show that, yes, we've made significant strides as a country and as a region in adopting digital technology, but it just shows how far we still have to go. And, you know, a lot of what we're doing at BIT is to address that discrepancy and to put us in a better position to deal with circumstances just like this. Hopefully this is the last of its kind, but obviously more adoption of digital technology will go a long way in streamlining the way we do business. So that's what we've been seeing, and that's where we're at.
Dario, I want to come back to you and move forward now to the whole process of managing finances and cash flow and keeping records and so on, which we alluded to earlier. Can you share with the viewers how, as you manage Shine Automotive, how do you handle this aspect of managing your finances, keeping proper records, keeping them up to date in a timely manner? How does Shine Automotive handle that?
Well, recently, with the use of technology, we've actually found an app that could do all of our point of sale transactions and then merge everything from there into actual accounts and that kind of thing, which could then be emailed straight to my accountant, and he would just prepare my record. So I would say we got to be able to utilize our technologies. There's so much tech out there that we could use in our businesses that makes it easy. No longer do we have to buy. I mean, I still have my ledger books. But when I first started, I would write down each single car that came and that kind of thing. But we don't have to do that anymore. No, you got a tablet, you got an app, and there's so many generic apps. You don't even have to buy your own app. So there are a lot of generic apps that you could use that you could just enter your day-to-day sales, your day-to-day information. Customer gets an email. You could track customer spend. You could create a loyalty program within those apps. There's so many different opportunities out there in the tech space. And that's why I am glad that Omar is talking about that, because I do believe that we need to move into the 21st century in Barbados for sure, because we're still in there yet. And we need to get more tech savvy. We need to be able to really incorporate technology into our day-to-day operations in all aspects. So for me, is about utilizing technology, is about making it easier for me, because I'm not an accountant by profession. So sitting down trying to prepare accounts is not something that I really want to spend my time doing. I don't want to spend my time being creative in my business, managing it and creating new opportunities and ideas for it all the time. So I need to be able to have something as simple, as easy, that is just a matter of emailing to my accountant who understands, and that's his profession, so he understands that way better. I mean, if he has any questions or needs any additional information, fine. but I use an automatic POS system that pretty much does everything for me at this stage. And all I need to do is to make sure that during the day or at the end of every day, I put in all my transactions and is pretty much taken care of.
Can you walk us through a bit of how you use the technology? Because I'm sensing that you're saying from arrival or collection of a vehicle to right down to return to the customer, that you're using the tablet and a particular app to capture every aspect of the service, prepare invoices, log the vehicles in, log the vehicles out, maybe even notify clients that their vehicles are ready. So can you just walk us through like a typical service and how you use the technology to accomplish that?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have that type of end-to-end. One app that does that type of end-to-end capabilities at the moment. I use a Google form to book my appointments, for instance. That Google form is recorded into a spreadsheet, which I would just call confirm and allow customers to drop off, or we pick up the vehicles as we need to. It's a separate point of sale app that I would actually do the transactions in, and then I would email the customer the receipt. But then what I do is that I merge the back end of my point of sale app and my Google form for the actual appointment. So I would be able to have all that data in one spreadsheet. And it allows me to be able to use that data to monitor trends, to see exactly what services are the most popular, to see exactly what services I need to tweak a bit or to redesign completely. So it's good information to have, and that is a very good point as well. I mean, we as entrepreneurs, data is one of the key elements of our business. We need to be able to have customer data. We need to be able to have transaction data in our business and use that data to our advantage to be able to design and create new opportunities or to tweak existing opportunities in our business. But I don't have an end-to-end app or one particular program that does everything, but I have a few things that I use to be able to pull everything together.
Yeah,
I have another question coming in. Go ahead, Omar. Go ahead.
Yeah, just to touch on Dario's point a bit and just agree with him and applaud his forward thinking. Entrepreneurs in this landscape definitely need to understand the power of data analytics. Being able to understand and interpret the data that comes into your business and then use it to grow. People often get very caught up in expense, what comes in and what comes out purely, but don't take the time to understand what it means. They don't use it to plot the way forward or sometimes to scale back. And it's something that more and more entrepreneurs need to have in their tool belt, being able to understand, because the business talks back as much as, it will talk in profit, but the business talks back to you with some good information that you can use with regards to sustainability, with regards to expansion. And I wish more and more entrepreneurs were like Dario and taking advantage of data analytics in terms of running their business.
Omar, on that point, just to continue a bit more, can you give some real life examples of the type of data that many of our entrepreneurs will have at their fingertips but may not even realize, and some real life examples of how they can use it to grow their businesses?
Yeah, for sure. And, I'll put in a shameless plug here for M-Money, just because, we spent the last few years building a solution to give merchants and consumers that very same capability. With an app like M-Money, which is, free and readily available to merchants and consumers, the information that goes into there and a conversation with your account manager can reveal a lot of useful information. When you're transacting digitally, everybody leaves a footprint. Everybody leaves, a thumbprint that you can then use to build into a strategy. So one example is an M-Money user who, takes in the M-Money can come to us at Bit and ask something as simple as, and obviously we're not revealing any personal data on our consumers, but we still reveal useful data. Somebody could come and say, where are the majority of my clients coming from? Because each of our consumers needs to deposit that information with us. And we could easily put together a spreadsheet that shows you, hey, you're in St. Michael, but most of your customers are coming from the Christchurch area. And that might seem like a very, laissez-faire piece of information, but you could build something very powerful from just knowing, where your customers are coming from. Similar to, what's the age of my average customer? It allows you to know who you're able to service, but also allows you to know who you're not capturing. that gives you the opportunity then to maybe add some layers to your product to attract a new demographic, perhaps. So there's all this powerful information just kind of lagging around. I mean, you don't get it from cash. Unfortunately, cash comes in, cash goes out. But, you know, with apps like M-Money, and then obviously some of the apps that Dario is talking about as well, which, you know, there's some good stuff out there. There's a lot of information that gets deposited and that you can use to really, really grow your business. Even in terms of promotions, you know, which of my products is selling better than the other ones, you know, then you're able to maybe think, hey, if I were to discount this and put a feature behind it, you know, I could really make some additional money. But a lot of entrepreneurs, they're not pulling that data together. They're just, you know, money in, money out. They're looking to pay the bills and get into the next day. But being able to understand how your business talks back to you is a really big part of growing. Sustainability first and then expansion, obviously. So, I mean, yes, a shameless plug for M-Money, but I mean, M-Money is an app that allows you to do, you know, a lot of that quite easily, actually. So I just, like I said, it's a tool that more consumers need to have in their tool belt, and it would give them a fighting chance, especially in some of the more saturated industries where you're looking for a competitive advantage.
Dario, I have a question coming in, and I'll start with you on it. What are some of the lessons that you can share with entrepreneurs about spending money from your business on your personal expenses? How have you managed that?
I believe that you need to be able to make the separation. I think as an entrepreneur, the best thing you could do is to pay yourself a salary and try to live within that salary. I mean, ultimately, you need to treat, if you really want your business to grow, you got to treat the business as a separate entity. Your business is not you. You are not your business. It's two separate entities. So, and that is where most entrepreneurs need to make that separation. The truth is, it's easy to just take up money every single day and spend it, and do it do it week in, week out. But if you pay yourself a salary and live within that, well, at the end of the day, your business is making X or Y minus your salary, and that gives you the opportunity to be able to, if you know you need more money or you need a better salary, then you got to put in some more effort into the business and get the business to generate some more revenue. Is as simple, is as simple as that. You need to be able to have the separation, and you also need to be able to have the right practices, and I want to say that comes with experience, because in most cases when you start a business, especially if you're starting it with no experience or with no mentors and that kind of thing around you, you usually don't know how to do everything correct out the blocks. So I think, and that's why you have forums like this and other agencies are available to be able to give you those little tips to be able to, because when I started, I didn't pay myself a salary, and I don't even think I could have done that at that stage. So but as you started to do a little more business and you started to speak to people and they come to an area saying, listen, you need to know all the business money, you need to do something with this. You're starting to put things in place to be able to make things better. So I do believe that you need to, as an entrepreneur, make that separation up front.
Is it more difficult to make the separation as the business grows and does better and you see more cash coming in?
If you're not disciplined, but I do believe that you need to evolve into a very disciplined individual. And if you really care about your business, and that's why it's different when somebody doing a business to make money and when somebody doing a business for another purpose, And when you're doing a business for another purpose, then you would do anything to ensure that the business grows, even if it means that you might not be able to buy the Mercedes Benz that you want to drive at this particular point in time. And that's a real decision that you might have to make. But we got to think business first and our needs after. And once we do that, the business will not hesitate but to bear fruit for us.
Okay, some useful discussion. I have another question that has come up in the chat, so let me jump to that right away. What do you think about partnerships, even in terms of, I believe they may mean in terms of accessing finance, but an example would be, we're a mechanic shop, but we're not good at logistics like delivery and pickup. What would you suggest in terms of using partnerships, either short or long term, to eliminate that challenge?
For me, I do believe in a full ecosystem for entrepreneurs. I do believe that every business out here should be able to feed into another business or provide a service that another business should benefit from. But we have to be open-minded. Unfortunately, everyone will not be on the same wavelength in terms of our thinking, and as a result, every partnership might not work. But I do believe that if you're an entrepreneur and you have a problem, you just need to seek someone who has a solution and try to formulate a partnership solution for it. I don't believe that, you as a business person or you as an entrepreneur, you're not going to be able to create everything yourself. You're not going to be able to do everything yourself. You need to have help, and that help might be best shaped as a partnership. So I do advocate for it, and wherever possible, we gotta start talking about about the ecosystem, the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and making sure that everything out here works in tandem with each other.
Omar,
Yeah, and I think
speak
that's
to our
being
viewers a little bit
highlighted
about
even
the
now.
transition from full-time employment. I think we're having a bit of a delay at different points.
Sorry, I just lost you there, David.
Omar, can you share a bit with our viewers about the transition? Right, okay. I was asking you to share a bit with our viewers on the transition from full-time employment to entrepreneurship and self-employment. What were some of the considerations? What was your experience? How did you know it was the right time to leave the security of the full-time employment to pursue your particular idea and get it started? And was financing it a big part of your decision as to when you made the transition?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say you need to have when you're making a decision like that is definitely confidence in your idea and confidence in your concept. If you're not sure about what you're doing, or you're not, personally confident in that you can achieve what you're looking to achieve, then you've already failed. They often say, if you believe you can or you believe you can't, then you're right. So it's a matter of having confidence in the idea that you have. And then secondly, it's the bravery to make the step, because it's a mental conditioning that needs to be had, just like Dario was talking about just now, in terms of even the discipline once you start. So what it took was just the bravery to kind of pull the safety net from under myself. I was happy where it was before too, but still there was a feeling inside of me that there was more that I could do, and there was more that I wanted to do, and a lot of it I wanted to do on my own. So you also need to take your time. A lot of people sometimes also rush into ideas. You need to take your time. You need to really formulate what you're looking to do, have it step by step. You need to very much visualize it. And then you also need to be very humble as well, because sometimes things will start well, and there'll be, like Dario said, road humps and hurdles, and you really just need to be mentally prepared to go through all of those things. And meanwhile, just keeping the confidence in your idea, you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and knowing what potentially could happen, and believing in yourself. So that self-confidence, and then visualizing and being very methodical in the way that you pursue your goals, that's something that's very, very important.
All right, so as we come to the close to the closing time for our time here this evening, Dario, I want to start with you. What would be your advice to any person seeking to finance their idea? What would be your advice based on your experience as to how they should go about it, where they should start, what should they consider, who should they consult? What would you recommend?
Well, the first thing they should do is to, properly put the idea on paper, and not only on paper for them to look at, but make sure you have someone who has an independent eye, whether it be an accountant or somebody who specializes in either business or some level of consultancy, to be able to give them an independent eye on the idea. Make sure to do all the market research needed. And as it relates to the financing, once they evaluate the project and the idea, then they could determine what level of financing they would want, and as a result, who they should go to. I always say that, peer-to-peer should always be the first. If it is a small project that you just need a couple $1,000s to start, peer-to-peer should be the first option. Because as I said, it gives you the relaxed environment where you could actually focus on developing the business and without having to pay or have those monthly commitments in at least the first 12 months or so. So evaluating the business is important. Certainly identifying the stage that you want to start at and where you want coming in the market is important. And that would ultimately lead to who you go to in terms of the financiers. And basically that who you go to, and as a result, how you go about doing it.
Omar, some thoughts for entrepreneurs seeking to finance either their startup or to expand their businesses. What would you share based on your experience?
Just to, again, just tell them about the importance of record keeping, accurate record keeping, making sure that, you can present, just like how you can present your idea for somebody else to understand, you can also practically present, in and outflows. That's very important for attaining financing. Making sure that you understand where you're trying to, corporate governance is a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs often overlook. So you need to make sure that your business is registered in the correct way, whether that's a sole ownership or incorporated or whatnot. That's very important. And then just making sure to keep all of your records and believe in yourself. Because when you're pitching your idea to somebody, especially a banker, bankers can tell when you believe in what you're pitching and when you just feel like you're going out on a limb. So you need to make sure that, you can present your idea and at the same time also, present records in a way that makes you attractive to persons who are offering financing.
All right. Okay, so I think we've had a pretty productive discussion. I don't have any other questions coming in from our viewers, but I hope that we've been able to at least share some of the experiences in terms of seeking finance. What are some of the sources? I know there is often an automatic focus on the commercial banking sector, but naturally, as we've been discussing, it's not necessarily the optimal starting point for our small businesses, our startups, and our micro entities. So I want to thank you, Dario and Omar, for joining us this evening and for sharing your experience, your knowledge, and being willing to be open and candid with our viewers. And we look forward to continuing this series in the coming days, and information will be circulated in terms of promoting the idea. I can't remember right now what's the next topic on our agenda, but as we have advertised, it's a full series from idea to success. And this evening, we've been looking at financing your idea. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us this evening.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us, David.
Yeah, man.